Thank you for joining us for this Form I-956K overview. I will go through the presentation today, reading the information on the slides and adding some additional information. Let's start with some of the preliminary general matters that pertain to the Form I-956K. As you might be aware, the Form I-956K is a USCIS form that was created following enactment of the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act of 2022, the RIA, and was first published on January 4, 2023. Our goal today is to provide guidance regarding the new form. Please note that throughout the talk, we may say form instead of I-956K. When we say form, we are referring to Form I-956K. We recommend that you have a copy of the Form I-956K and instructions available to reference during this presentation. The information shared in this presentation is intended solely for purposes of illustration and does not create or supersede agency policy with respect to the I-956K form, form instructions, or applicable statutes. As a reminder, please consult these and other USCIS sources for additional information. Form I-956K is the registration form for direct and third-party promoters, which must be completed by each person acting as a direct or third-party promoter, including migration agents, of a regional center, any new commercial enterprise, NCE, an affiliated job-creating entity, JCE, or an issuer of securities intended to be offered to alien investors in connection with a particular capital investment project, and is participating in the Regional Center program. A promoter should submit Form I-956K before operating on behalf of any of the specified entities, or promoting any offering under the EB-5 Regional Center program. Form I-956K must be submitted separately from any other Regional Center forms, including the Form I-956F, Application for Approval of an Investment in a Commercial Enterprise, to seek approval of an investment in a commercial enterprise. The form instructions clarify that legible photocopies should be submitted. The instructions also state that if the Regional Center submits original documents that are not required and have not been requested by USCIS, those original documents may be destroyed upon receipt. You may notice that the instructions do not specifically require that the Regional Center submit any original documents along with the form. Therefore, in the context of the I-956K, do not send original documents unless specifically requested by USCIS. If USCIS specifically requires original documents, they will be returned to you after the adjudication process is complete. The information USCIS collects on the form is required by the RIA. USCIS will use the information provided to determine the promoter's eligibility for registration. We may conduct standard background checks with law enforcement, which may uncover derogatory information that may result in the suspension or permanent bar of your registration or other appropriate actions authorized by law. Select one box to indicate the type of registration you are filing. If this is your first time filing an I-956K, select Initial Registration. If you are filing an I-956K to amend a previous designation, select the appropriate box. If it is an amendment, you should indicate the type of changes being requested by your amendment and include your promoter ID number. Keep in mind, your amendment must continue to provide the names and information of all entities with which you currently maintain a written agreement. Every person acting as a direct or third-party promoter, including migration agents, must complete Form I-956K. This includes both individuals and organizations. If you are an individual filing an I-956K, you must provide the biographic and identifying information in items 1 through 8, including your full legal name and any aliases you have had or have, as well as your date of birth and country of birth. The I-956K requires individuals to provide countries of citizenship, which includes any current countries of citizenship, as well as those citizenships that were relinquished at any time in the past. A passport number, or numbers if you have more than one passport, and the countries associated with those passports are also required. Individual registrants should indicate whether they are U.S. nationals or lawful permanent residents, and, if so, provide their alien registration number, or A number. Individuals should also submit a copy of a valid government-issued identification card and copies of all passports with the form. If you are an organization filing the I-956K, please provide the name of the organization and care of name, the date the organization was organized, the state in which it was organized, and the organization's federal employer identification number. Organizations should submit a copy of the organization's current formation documents, along with any other filings under which the organization is authorized to do business, such as foreign entity registration documents and fictitious business name statements. The registrant should provide all ways they can be contacted, including a mailing address where the registrant would prefer to receive USCIS correspondence. Please put your mailing address and not simply the mailing address of the EB-5 entity you are involved with. USCIS may contact you via mail to ask a question about your registration or to issue a request for information or a request for evidence. Under the RIA, USCIS may use the address provided to schedule persons for their biometrics appointments. USCIS may require that you appear for an interview or provide biometrics, fingerprints, photograph, and/or signature at any time to verify your identity, obtain additional information, and conduct background and security checks. Please provide a website and email address, if any. USCIS may contact you via email about your form via a request for clarification. You have the option to reply to a request for clarification by requesting that we issue a formal request for evidence instead. Registrants should indicate whether they are employed or otherwise engaged by another promoter. If so, you must provide the name and registration number of the promoter. Each individual should indicate their role or roles for which they are employed or performing. If you have more than one role, select all role or roles that apply and provide your job titles or a description of your involvement as appropriate in the appropriate cells. If you are operating on behalf of a regional center, NCE, or an affiliated JCE, indicate whether you have entered into the written agreements required under INA Section 203B5K3. Each written agreement should demonstrate compliance with the rules and standards of the EB-5 Regional Center Program and any applicable federal and state securities laws for the promotion of EB-5 investment offerings. For each written agreement, provide the title of the written agreement, the date it was executed, and its parties, including the legal name of the regional center entity, NCE, and/or JCE. Indicate whether the entity is a regional center, NCE, JCE, and provide the relevant regional center IDs and NCE IDs if available. Fill out all requested information. Do not simply write "See attached evidence" or something similar in item number 2. Registrants must file an amendment if any entity in Part 3, item number 2 on the promoter's initial registration changes, either by entering into, terminating, or amending an agreement with an entity. The amendment must identify all entities the promoter currently operates on behalf of, and not just the entities added or removed. Part 4 of the Form I-956K contains 13 questions to demonstrate the promoter's eligibility to be involved with the EB-5 entity in accordance with INA 203B5H. You should answer yes to any question that applies, even if the records were sealed or otherwise cleared, or if anyone, including a judge, law enforcement officer, or attorney, told the person they no longer have a record. You should answer yes to the following questions, whether it occurred here in the United States or anywhere else in the world. If the person answers yes to any question, use Part 9, Additional Information, to provide an explanation of why the person was arrested, the charges, and the outcome of the case. Remember, if you knowingly and willfully falsify or conceal a material fact or submit a false document with your Form I-956K, USCIS may take appropriate action, which may include a permanent bar or suspension of your registration. Registrants must certify, under penalty of perjury, that they are authorized to provide certification by the promoter, and that the promoter is not ineligible under INA 203B5H1. In general, the certification should be provided by the promoter if the promoter is an individual, or an individual authorized to provide the certification if the promoter is an organization. The designated certifier must provide their name and contact information legibly in the spaces provided on the form. Part 6 of the I-956K requires a statement, declaration, and signature of the person involved with the Regional Center program, or an authorized individual. The person involved must first select the appropriate box if they've had assistance in preparing the form, either through a preparer or an interpreter. If the promoter or authorized individual does not understand English and had an interpreter assist in the reading of questions and the filling out of the form, select the appropriate box and provide the interpreter's name. The interpreter must then complete Part 7. If the promoter or authorized individual is not filling out the form themselves, then the promoter or authorized individual must select the appropriate box and provide the name of the preparer who prepared the application. The preparer may be an attorney for the promoter. The preparer must then complete Part 8. If the same person was the interpreter and preparer, that person should complete both Parts 7 and 8. The I-956K requires the name, title, and contact information of the person involved in the Regional Center program, or the authorized individual, in case USCIS needs to contact the person or authorized individual. This individual must sign and date the form following the certification. The authorized individual must also declare, among other things, that they recognize USCIS authority to conduct audits using publicly available information, and recognize that USCIS may verify information through any means determined appropriate by USCIS, including but not limited to on-site visits. By signing the form, the person involved with the Regional Center program or authorized individual swears under penalty of perjury that they provided all information required by the form, and that all information is complete, true, and correct. Please note that even if a different individual prepared the form, it is still the authorized individual's responsibility to declare, under penalty of perjury, that all information contained in the form is complete, true, and correct, and that they are authorized to file on behalf of the organization. Any unsigned form will be rejected. If we accept the form, but then determine the signature is deficient, we will reject the registration. However, USCIS will consider a photocopied, faxed, or scanned copy of the original handwritten signature valid for filing purposes. The photocopy, fax, or scan must be of the original document containing the handwritten ink signature. If the promoter or authorized individual used an interpreter to read and/or fill out any portion of the I-956K, the interpreter must provide information including name, mailing address, and other contact information where the interpreter may be contacted. The interpreter must also provide the business or organization the interpreter works for, if any. The interpreter must certify that the interpreter is fluent in English, that the interpreter read all questions to the promoter or authorized individual, and that the promoter or authorized individual understood all questions and instructions on the I-956K and verified the accuracy of every answer. As stated above, if any individual other than the promoter or authorized individual mentioned in Part 6 prepared and completed the I-956K on behalf of the promoter or authorized individual, the preparer must complete Part 8, including the preparer's identification and contact information. This information also includes the preparer's name, mailing address, and any other contact information. The preparer must also provide the business or organization the preparer works for, if any. The preparer must indicate whether they are an attorney or accredited representative, certify that they prepared the form at the request of the promoter or authorized individual, and certify that the promoter or authorized individual reviewed the form and that all the information provided on the form is complete, true, and correct. If the same individual acted as your interpreter and your preparer, that person should complete both Part 7 and Part 8. If the preparer is an attorney or accredited representative, the preparer may also need to submit a G-28, Notice of Entry of Appearance as attorney or accredited representative. If you look at Parts 5 through 8, you can see the I-956K requires individual signatures. Each application must be properly signed and filed. Please note that it is not acceptable to use a stamped signature or typewritten name in place of the certifier, authorized individuals, interpreters, or preparers' signatures. This includes electronic signatures. USCIS will not accept signatures created by AutoPens or similar devices. Any unsigned application will be rejected. If we accept the application but then determine the signature is deficient, we will deny the application. However, USCIS will consider a photocopied, faxed, or scanned copy of the original handwritten signature valid for filing purposes. The photocopy, fax, or scan must be of the original document containing the handwritten ink signature. Like many other USCIS forms, the Form I-956K features extra space for providing additional details in Part 9, Additional Information. Additional information may be inserted here. Registrants may need to use this part for various parts of the form. Make sure that the additional information you include in Part 9 is accurate and consistent with the other data on the form, as well as the supporting evidence submitted with the form. If more space is needed, registrants can make as many copies of Part 9 as needed to provide additional information and file with their application. Registrants should provide their registration number at the top of each Part 9 they submit. Just a final reminder that your filing should include the following evidence. For individuals, a copy of a valid government-issued identification card and copies of all passports. For organizations, a copy of the organization's current formation documents along with any other filings that authorize the organization to do business. Lastly, you must confirm the existence of any written agreement and submit a copy of such agreement with this form. You must mail the completed I-956K and supporting documentation to the appropriate address. Applicants should check the USCIS website, uscis.gov, for the most current mailing address. Registrants should gather all required evidence and submit at the same time as the I-956K. This will help USCIS bundle all the files together and will help expedite the review process. Please note, if you send your Form I-956K and supporting evidence directly to IPO in Washington, D.C., we will reject it. Registrants should check the USCIS website for the current filing fee. Please review the Form I-956K instructions for more information. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time.